this insane giveaway to illegal aliens that has led to the shutdown of the Roosevelt Hotel. Savannah joins us now. Sav, walk us through this situation. And for those of us who don't have any context, I mean, this has been going on for years in the city of New York.
Oh, absolutely, Jack. And the Roosevelt Hotel, just for people who are not familiar, was one of the biggest processing centers for illegal immigrants in New York. This is one of the areas where they were giving out free plane tickets for illegal immigrants who came into the city. For example, this is actually the same shelter that Jose Ibarra, the illegal immigrant who murdered Laken Riley, this is where he got his plane ticket to go from New York City to Georgia to go and commit that horrific crime. So that's Roosevelt Hotel. Now, it just closed down, and Eric Adams has been promising to close down migrant shelters throughout New York. And of course, he's been stating that the migrant crisis, thanks to the Trump administration, of course, has slowed down. But there are still tens of thousands of illegal immigrants that are currently residing in that area. So what's happening right now is, instead of sheltering them in the Roosevelt Hotel, which, by the way, is owned by the Pakistan government, or the government of Pakistan, the city of New York was paying them $220 million to house illegal immigrants since 2022 in this shelter. That in itself is an insane caveat to this story. But the Roosevelt Hotel now shut down. However, these migrants are simply being hidden in plain sight and being pushed into the homeless shelters in New York, which, by the way, are partially federally funded. And what's happening is the Department of Homeless Services is, of course, telling their employees, you cannot cooperate with ICE. A ICE detainer is not enough to allow ICE into facilities. If ICE is coming to make an arrest simply for immigration-related purposes, you cannot allow them into the facility. You cannot tell ICE the facility addresses where illegal immigrants are currently residing. So this is the situation that's currently happening in New York, and quite frankly, in the blue cities across the United States of America. And this is where the illegal immigration fight is currently at. So I went up that way because the closure of the Roosevelt Hotel is in essence, a huge win, right? Because it does show us that we are making good strides in the right direction in terms of illegal immigration. However, Democrats are now working overtime to simply hide illegal immigrants and continue providing them with free hotel rooms on the taxpayer dime.
And what's incredible, too, is that, so this is the same city, and man, we've been talking about New York a lot lately, from Luigi Maggioni to the massive illegal alien crisis, to now Zoran Mamdani becomes this socialist, and a guy, by the way, who is an avowed socialist, but who we all know that you scratch a socialist and you find a communist right under. And somebody was telling me that one of the cable news networks was trying to say, well, socialism just means everything's free, and socialism just means that you get free stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh. The cable news guys, they don't understand. Socialism doesn't mean that. Socialism means tearing down groups of people who they have targeted and uplifting their friends and uplifting abject criminals and letting them loose among society. Sav, why is it that people are still buying this kind of stuff? What's crazy to me, though, is when you're talking about these issues, they say, well, okay, well, there's all these issues with rent. There's issues with pricing in New York. There's issues with the congestion, et cetera. These people don't like the new taxes. You have all of those laws because of Democrats and liberal policies. That's why they exist. And yet, for some reason, they think that the answer is to go further to the left.
You know, Jack, I've done a lot of reporting on New York, and what I've realized about New York is there's two classes of people that are going to be voting for Zohran Mamdani. The first class is Nepo babies and the kids of rich people, right? The kids who never actually had to go work, who've never had to go work for anything in their life. These are the same exact people that are attending these anti-ICE protests and stopping mothers from going to work. This is another, instance that I captured earlier this month. Those are Zohran Mamdani's supporters. They're rich kids who have no idea how the economy works, have no idea how a business works, have no idea how anything works, and just like the idea of, oh, you know what, this is how we're going to virtue signal. We're going to vote in socialism because, this is how we can help society by voting in somebody who's going to give everybody everything for free, just like our parents gave to us. They have no idea how hard work works or the economy works, like I just stated. So that's class one of the people who support Zohran. Class two, what I'm realizing is, of course, the first generation children of immigrants who come to the United States of America, or quite frankly, illegal immigrants who may or may not be voting in New York's elections come November, because we all know that they have very lax voting laws over there. Illegal immigrants all have access to Real ID NYC, which of course is the government issued ID that illegal immigrants can have up that way. So these are kind of the two patterns that I've noticed, right? It's either rich kids who have no idea how things work, or it is the illegal immigrants or children, first generation children of immigrants who, again, have no loyalty to the United States of America, have no loyalty to our culture, our country, our foundations, that are pushing these horrific third world ideals into the United States of America, and supporting somebody like Zohran Mamdani because, and I quote, hey, this person's like my parents. He's not from the United States of America, and that's okay. We don't like the culture of the United States of America, so we want to vote somebody in who is going to dismantle the West and target and attack whiter, richer neighborhoods. So those are the two classes that have really stood out to me, Jack.
And no, I think you're right. The way that I've been describing this since the election is it's new New York versus old New York. And so old New York, this is, and because people were, kind of responding to my arguments that mass immigration plays a huge role here. And they said, well, hold on, Jack, but, blacks and Hispanics voted more for Cuomo than they did for Mamdani. I said, but that's entirely my point. Right, that's exactly what I'm saying, that when you have these recent immigrants who and their children, the first generation, then vote, they're coming from places, particularly in New York, they've seen a massive threefold skyrocketing explosion of South Asian and Middle Eastern immigrants to the New York metro area. And Mamdani won them by 80%. He won them 80-20. And that is simply an irrevocable truth. It is just absolutely true. He wins those, and then he wins this other block, as you say, and it's amazing too, because when we wrote this massive treatise on the history of communism last year, which I believe the 1-year anniversary will be Monday. I have to do something about that. Talking about all of these trends, we've always pointed out and identified that something that Vladimir Lenin and the Bolsheviks realized. This is the difference between Leninism and pure communism. What they identified was, and we write about this in On Humans, was that the working class never seems to actually just rise up on their own to revolt. And so, of course, Marx famously ends the Communist Manifesto with "Workers of the world unite." But as it turns out, the working class don't really go in for all of this revolutionary nonsense because they're spending more time just working. They have jobs, they work. They're not interested in any of these mass movements. But typically, the sorts of people that really form the core of these revolutionary movements, and of course, the Russian Revolution being the first pure Marxist revolution, was Leninism. And here's the difference between Leninism and Marxism, which, gosh, I'd love if the cable news guys would understand this. And Sav, I think you'll get what I'm coming at here when I say this. The difference is because Lenin realized that you need a core of urban elitists who can then come and lead the proletariat to that greater revolution, because they can't do so on their own. You need an educated, young, urban core to be the vanguard of the revolution. And this is where that phrase vanguard of the revolution comes from. And also the vanguard of the proletariat, who are not actually members of the proletariat themselves. Well, these are members of the bourgeoisie, right? They are the sons and daughters of the rich who, for whatever reason, whether it be lazy, whether it be recent immigration status, in this case, whether it be just not having gone through that rite of passage of having like a summer job that kind of sucks, but you have to put in that time to be able to go through your adulthood phase. They don't really have any of that. They never had any of that. And so what do they go for? They go for these mass movements. And Lenin realized that if he was able to do that among the urban cores of Russia during the Russian Empire period, that he would be able to push for this mass revolution. I don't know, Sav, does that sound like a little familiar to you, but just in a little way?
Maybe a little bit. Maybe we're seeing, history repeat itself in New York, which is probably why we don't teach, American children about the history of communism, which is why our entire education system has become subverted. And that's essentially what we are seeing in the modern day, right, Jack? It's subversion and invasion that has led the United States of America to where we are right now, where Zohran Mamdani is campaigning on open socialism, and the people of New York are clapping their hands and saying that this is a great thing. You really have to, like you were stating, look at the class of people that is supporting this, because it's not the people who, quite frankly, are educated well, but were educated by a system that was subverted by potentially, foreign adversaries, or even people who just straight up hate Western culture, hate the United States
Right.
of America. And, this has been a really interesting talking point that a lot of people have been bringing up, but it's how legal immigration has also impacted the culture of the United States of America. And this is an example as to how.